Surrogate, Am I? By Rich von Holt. Chapter 1. Storytelling. It's 7:30 a.m., about 55 degrees in Miami. As I look at the ocean through the glass slide door from my 22-floor corner apartment at the yacht club, I see people running, bike riding, rollerblading, and walking their dogs in their big bubble coats. It's always busy on South Beach. I must get to work. I get so distracted from the city. There are so many pretty people here, so much life. I work from home. I am a writer, a novelist. I have 3 months to complete my new book. Well, it's a compilation. I'm still trying to get used to living here. I am from many places, mainly of northern parts. I was raised in a small, quiet town. I remember it being mainly winter for most of the year. A lot of trees and green grass everywhere. As a young adult, I moved around a lot. I like to travel. I have seen mostly all of Europe because I was in the armed forces. When the war broke out, I was drafted. After 2 years of training, I was only in battle for a couple months. I had gotten hurt and was sent home. I really had nowhere to go since I am an orphan. So, I just backpacked through Europe. I had a hobby of writing, and that's what brought me to Miami. I had written a couple of articles for some newspapers and magazines while I was in Italy and France. I had started to work for a local news station in Hungary as a writer. I had it easy in Europe. No one really asked any questions. Most of my jobs, I had been paid under the table. I guess no one wanted to associate with Americans since they were in Europe causing chaos. Everyone had seen I was hurt and helped me. When I had arrived in Miami, I started writing short stories for a small publishing company. Most of my short stories repeat my life somehow and in some way. I might exaggerate a little bit, but that's to make it interesting. This new story I am working on is interesting. It's a complicated story. I am having trouble writing it. The character is trying to find peace, but has no idea what anything is. It's like coming into the world as an adult and viewing the world as an infant. They're just trying to find a nurturing person. Then the conflict begins. To create this character, I must really take myself out of my body and my mind and try to look at everything for the first time and describe it. I'm having a really hard time. I sit around most of the day and stare at my computer screen, and I call myself a writer. I should call myself a typist. Technology is changing every day. I do think one day that there will be a device that I will wear around my head, and my thought will be processed and stored on a disk, which then I will be able to hook up to a computer and I can do a data search. But for now, I will type. The story begins. Chapter 2. White. White is a color I am very fond of. White is the one color I see when I close my eyes. White is my first memory. My memory is very solid, like the color white. It's very simple, yet very complicated. Just like the color white, it is made up of many colors, but yet it's colorless. I know it's strange to say, white is a memory, but for me it is. White to some people reminds them of milk, clothes, bed sheets, even chess pieces, and some it may be Christmas morning, when Awoken rushed to look outside, only to see everything has appeared to be white. White snow on the ground, and a clear white sky. But most of all, white represents heaven, which is supposed to be peaceful. However, white to me is not peaceful. My memory of white would be the same of those who live in a building where they would have to wear a straitjacket. I have not worn a straitjacket, but white scares me very much. White can be so bright, it's blinding. That's how my memory starts. White is the first thing I saw when I was awoken, but no one was in the room. I felt violently disturbed, like I was being attacked, and I couldn't breathe. My head began to shake as I curled into the corner of the bed. The white light was blinding. My eyes began to twitch. I began to see everything in doubles. I started to hear loud noises coming from every corner of the room. Nothing made sense to me. There were so many voices, so many voices. I couldn't tell them apart. I then covered my ears and stuck my head face down into the white pillows on the bed, grabbing the white sheets. I tried to silence out the noise. I closed my eyes so tight, I started to shake again. After a few seconds, the noise faded away. I shot up and looked at the door, which had a small 4x4 glass window at the top of it. I slowly moved my legs from underneath me and put my foot onto the cold white tiled floor. The floor was very smooth and shiny. I lifted my body off the bed and began to take my first steps towards the door. The door wasn't far, but it felt like forever to get there. As I put one foot in front of the other, shuffling my feet, I started to hear more noises. This time it was coming from beyond the door. The noises were not voices, but sounds like when a spoon hits a glass jar. It started to get louder and louder. I finally reached the glass window, only to see others that looked similar as me, wearing the same white clothes as me, sitting on tables that were lined up. They had their mouths open, while some others wearing long white jackets were looking inside of their mouths. These others with the long white jackets were not hurting the others that looked just like me, but were taking care of them. I looked down at the door and grabbed the knob. I began pulling it, but nothing happened. I started hearing a loud thump. The thump was getting louder and louder, harder and harder. As I was still looking down, I started to see the knob turn. I quickly let go of the knob. I then looked up into the glass window, only to see eyes staring back at me. I began to move my feet quickly backwards until I hit the white wall that is behind me. The door jolted open. The ones wearing long white jackets rushed in. Two of them grabbed me and pushed me onto the cold tiled floor. Another came at me with a long, thin, pointed, sharp tip and stuck it into my neck. My eyes began to water. Everything started to look fuzzy. All I saw was black. Chapter 3, Interrogation. At this point, my head weighed 1,000 pounds. My eyes were still watery. I started to see everything in doubles. I opened my eyes. Slowly, I started to see that color again. White. However, there was another color, silver. As I began to look up, I saw a silver table, and sitting opposite of that was another one of those who wear long white jackets. But this one is much more intense. This other one is starting at me, with eyes as black as it was when I was stabbed into the neck. I looked down at my sides, only to find that both my hands were tied to the chair that I'm sitting in. The other began to speak. "Do you know where you are?" he said. I just started to stare at the other with a confused look. The other began to speak again. He said, "Do you know who you are?" This time it was louder than the first. My eyes moved away from the eyes that were staring at me so intensely. I began to stare at the white wall, which I am afraid of yet comfortable with. The other began to repeat what was said, but only louder. Yet I had no answer. Well, if you don't know what I am saying, I will explain everything until movement comes back into your eyes. I am a doctor, which means I'm a physician, which means I am going to make sure your being is well. You will learn all this and more in your programming exercises. You were designed by the US military to be used in case of a war was to break out. I just sat there still, not looking at the doctor. He continued, "Okay, still nothing. You are an android, a machine. You will learn the protocols as required, and after the war, you will be dismembered. After we are done talking, after I'm done telling you, we'll be placed in a dark room and will be trained and turned into a U.S. military solider. I began to stare into the eyes of the doctor. I started to speak. If I will be programmed, how do I already know how I feel about everything? The doctor began to write on a white piece of paper. How you feel about everything, he replied. When asked this question, the doctor leaned forward and said, "So you're telling me that you know how you feel, huh? So, tell me how you feel?" I am speechless. I really didn't know what to say. The doctor's stare is digging into my skin. So, I started to speak. All I know is that I feel dizzy, cold, scared, and alone. Chapter 4. Programming. Right after being interrogated, I am sent to another room. Only this room is a different color. It's mostly blues and blacks. When I enter the room, there is a man standing. I feel like he is waiting for me. This is all strange. The man introduces himself as Kyle. He is my height, thin-built, curly black hair, and a dark complexion. He is wearing to appear to be old clothes. Kyle is very charismatic. Right away, he had me sit in a chair in front of him. This chair is not comfortable. It is very tight-fitting. Kyle has me place my right hand on this scanner next to the chair. The scanner is cold. Kyle then turned on a light over my hand, which made it hot. So now, with the top on my hand being hot and the bottom cold, I got this feeling that something out of the ordinary is about to happen. Kyle then placed a metal tube around my forehead that is connected to the back of the chair I am sitting in. In front of me are two black flat-screen monitors with a blue tint displayed. The room was getting darker. The only light was coming from the monitors and the light that my hand was on. I'm going to turn on the machine, and when the light gets dimmer, your eyes will begin to twitch. Don't be frightened, but this stage is called android programming, Kyle said. He continues to speak. In this stage, you will learn by viewing these two monitors. You will learn how the Earth evolved from the beginning of time to how we got to you and I sitting here in this dark, cold room. I don't understand what he is speaking about, so I ask him, "Kyle, I feel like I trust you, but I don't understand, and I don't know what you are speaking about." Kyle replies, "Talking about?" I just gaze at him with confusion. He continues, "Talking about its proper vocabulary. You see right now as you hear people communicate, you start to replicate their vocabulary without comprehending it." Kyle paused and stared at me. My eyebrows began to move down and closer together. My eyes felt tight. "So, what am I doing here?" I said. Kyle smiles and turns on some machines. "Everything on these monitors is going to teach you the meaning of life, and after you and I are going to discuss it," Kyle said. The machines made a loud noise that affected my ears. My hand on that is on the scanner began to get hotter. A metal helmet from behind the chair fit tight around my head. The monitors are very colorful. At first sight, I don't know what I am watching. There are a lot of furry creatures and scenic areas. Chapter 5. Robotic Training. When I awoke again, I was already standing. My legs felt stiff, like I had been frozen in place, and only just thawed. My arms dangled loosely at my sides. I looked down and noticed the same white clothes, now dirtier than before. My feet were bare against a cold metal floor that vibrated slightly. The room was larger this time, not a room, really more like a chamber. Industrial lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that stretched out and then snapped back when I moved. There were others. at least 10 of us, all standing in rows, evenly spaced, like we'd been arranged that way. No one spoke. Some had blank stares. Others blinked slowly, unsure of where they were. I didn't speak either. I didn't want to give away that I might be different, that something inside me still didn't make sense. Then a loud clank echoed through the chamber. 2 doors opened on opposite ends. From one side, the white coats entered, dragging behind them what looked like large carts, metal, rusted, stacked with black gear. One of the coats shouted something I didn't understand. A word. One word. I think it was a name, maybe a designation. I didn't move. Another android did. He stepped forward like it was instinct. The white coat handed him a vest, heavy looking, and boots with thick soles. Then a helmet. The android took them without question. The next name was called. Another stepped forward. This continued for minutes, maybe hours. I lost track. When my name was called, if it was a name, I hesitated. But something inside me moved, not by thought, but command. I walked forward. The gear was heavy. I could barely carry it all at once. The boots made a loud noise when I walked back to my spot in the line. Then we were told to change, not with words, but with action. One of the white coats gestured. The others began stripping and putting on the black gear. I followed. The vest squeezed my chest tight. The helmet fit snug. Everything smelled like oil and burned metal. I hated the way it felt on my skin, even though I wasn't sure if I had skin or if it was something else. Once dressed, another sound echoed, this time more like a siren. Doors opened in the far wall, and we were marched into another space. A long corridor. Everything was gray. Everything was loud. My boots felt like weights. We stopped in front of a screen. A new figure appeared, taller, broader, face hidden under a black visor. He called himself Commander Reese. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He told us we were weapons, and weapons don't think. Weapons obey. He repeated that twice. Then the training began. We were instructed to run endless laps around the chamber. We were shown how to hold rifles, how to disarm each other, how to fight using only hands and elbows and knees. Every time I got something wrong, I was shocked, not lightly. Electricity surged up my spine and down to my legs. My vision would flicker white, then black, then white again. Some of the others fell. Some didn't get back up. When I helped one of them, Commander Reese saw me. He walked over, towered above me, said nothing. Then he pressed something on a tablet he held. My whole body seized. My knees gave out. I dropped. The next day, I didn't help anyone. I learned faster after that. But something stayed in me. Not just the pain, something smaller, quiet. I couldn't name it yet. I only knew it grew every time I looked at the others. Every time I saw one collapse and no one moved to help. Every time I remembered the warmth in Kyle's voice and how this place felt like the opposite of that. We were all first generation. That's what they whispered before this place. We weren't supposed to fight. We were meant to learn. They called it a flaw. I don't think it is. They wanted to make us soldiers, but I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be one. Chapter 6. Exploring the facility. I don't remember walking here. I was standing still, but I didn't know how I got to this room. The walls were still white, but not like before. These were older, smudged in the corners, scuffed near the floor. The lighting above me flickered a little. It wasn't as bright as the other rooms I had been in. It felt different. The light buzzed and pulsed, just enough to remind me of pain. I squinted without thinking. My eyes still didn't like this color. this white, this version of peace. This room had others in it. They looked like me. Same black gear, same cold face, same body type. Some were sitting, some were standing. A few moved around slowly, quiet and still like shadows, trying not to be noticed. There were 7 of them. No one looked at each other. Not until I stepped in. They all turned at once. Their heads moved first. Smooth. Too smooth. Then their eyes. But not like how Kyle looked at me. Not like how the man in the white coat stared into me. This was something else. Empty. Like they were told to look. Like someone behind the wall pressed a button. And now it was time to observe. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. No one nodded back. The door behind me clicked. Locked. I took a step forward. A few turned their heads back in the direction they were facing before. One stood completely still, eyes forward, unblinking. I walked slowly around the room. I passed a metal table. I brushed my fingers across it. It was cold. Everything here is cold. One of them walked by me, stopped, and turned. "You are Unit 31, he said. His voice was flat. His lips barely moved. I opened my mouth to speak, but I didn't know if I should. I looked at him. He looked at me. That was it. "Do you feel anything?" I asked him. He blinked once. "Repeat." I repeated the question, slower this time. "Do you feel anything?" His head tilted slightly, just a few degrees. "I do not understand the question." He walked away. I looked around again. One was staring at a wall. Another sat perfectly still, hands folded like a statue. The others moved like wind-up toys, with just enough battery left to stand upright. I sat down in a chair at the far end of the room. It was cold metal with a black rubber strip across the seat. I could still feel the spot where I had been shocked in training. The pain wasn't there, but the memory was. I closed my eyes. All I heard were soft footsteps. No voices, no breathing, just the humming of the light above me and the low buzz of whatever system ran through the floor. Something in my chest tightened. I didn't know what it was. It made me feel smaller. It made my fingers twitch. I opened my eyes again and saw a reflection of myself in a darkened glass panel across the room. Just a blurry outline, just enough to tell me I was still here, still me, still not like them. Then the door unlocked with a sharp click. A voice came from overhead. It was calm, flat, and deep. "Return to designated quarters." The others moved in unison. I stood last. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one more time at the android who had spoken to me. He hadn't moved. He just stared straight ahead, like nothing ever happened. Chapter 7. The Results. They woke me up with sound. Not loud, not sudden, just a soft, pulsing tone that repeated in my ear like a heartbeat. It wasn't mine. I don't think I have one. But it was there to remind me I was still connected to something, still being monitored. The lights in my room came on slowly. It was the same room as before, but the shadows had changed. The walls looked darker than usual, or maybe my eyes had adjusted to darkness. I sat up, my body stiff again, like it forgot how to move while I slept. The door opened without a knock. 2 of the white coats entered. One was the tall one with glasses. The other one was smaller, younger. He held a clipboard. They didn't look at me like Kyle did. They looked at me like I was an object they were testing, a machine that needed recalibrating. "Stand," the tall one said. I stood. "Follow." I followed. We walked through a narrow corridor with yellow lights along the bottom edge of the walls. The floor vibrated again beneath my boots. I could hear the hum of machines behind the walls. like something massive was always breathing beneath the surface. They brought me into a small white room. There was a table in the middle with 2 chairs. I sat in the one closest to the door, like I was supposed to. A large monitor on the wall lit up, blue light, then graphs, then moving images. I didn't know what they meant, but I recognized my own face on one of the screens. It was from earlier, maybe yesterday, or the day before. The younger one with the clipboard finally looked at me. "You're showing irregular patterns," he said. I didn't know what that meant. "Your empathy response is active." "That's not possible." He turned to the tall one. "Did you alter his programming?" "No. He's been on the standard path. No deviation. Until now." They started speaking over each other. Words like anomaly, infection, independent processing. I kept hearing the word emotion over and over. It was a word I had started to understand, but they didn't speak about it like it was a good thing. They spoke like it was a flaw, a malfunction. "Is he aware he's deviating?" the younger one asked. I stared at the screen. My face blinked on and off, a still frame of me standing in the group room, alone, looking around. I answered softly, "Aware of what?" They both stopped talking. The tall one leaned down. "You answered a question we didn't direct at you." I looked at him. "I know." His eyes narrowed. He turned to the younger one. "Prepare an isolated diagnostic session. I want full cognitive mapping by the end of the day." They both turned to leave. But before the door closed behind them, I asked one more question. "Is something wrong with me?" The tall one paused, just for a second. He didn't answer. The door closed, and I sat there alone, watching a screen with my face on it, still blinking, still breathing, still trying to understand what it meant to be wrong. I remembered something from the early programming. They once used rooms like this to teach us how to be human, how to blend in, smile, speak, pretend. But I wasn't pretending anymore, and maybe that's what scared them. Chapter 8. Stationed. They gave me a number. It was stitched into the chest of my new uniform. 31. White numbers on black fabric. Nothing else. I don't remember asking for it, but now it's mine. I don't even know if it means I'm the 31st version, or just the only one still standing. The room they brought me to was long and narrow. Bunk beds lined the walls. The walls weren't white anymore. They were concrete, gray, cold. The kind of color that doesn't let you forget where you are. I wasn't alone. 5 others were already there when I walked in. They were putting away their gear, polishing boots, staring at walls like they could see something in them. They looked like me, moved like me, but they weren't like me. None of them spoke. I found an empty bunk at the far end and sat down. The mattress was stiff. The blanket was thin. I held my hands together and stared at my fingers. I kept waiting for something to change. Maybe they'd flicker. Maybe they'd stop moving. Nothing did. Later that day, we were lined up. Commander Reese returned. His voice was the same, hard and even. No emotion. He told us this was our squad, that we'd be stationed together, that war was coming. He used words like objective, compliance, mission readiness. He never said kill. He didn't have to. We were assigned lockers and schedules. We were told when to sleep, when to train, when to eat. Even though I never tasted anything, they still made us sit there and chew. It felt like pretending. I wasn't sure if it was for us or for them. There were whispers of deployment. The others didn't react. No head turns. No raised eyebrows. Nothing. I tried to speak to one of them, Unit 27. He was tall, darker skin, strong jaw. I thought he might respond if I said something simple. "Do you remember before this?" I asked. He blinked. "There was only this. That was the end of it." Later, when lights were out, I stared at the ceiling. It had cracks in it. A single line that ran from one corner to the other, like a scar. I traced it with my eyes till my vision began to blur. Not from tiredness, from something else. Something inside me that didn't know how to stop searching. I thought about Kyle, his voice, the screens, the colors, the things I had learned. Then I thought about the others. If we're all the same, why do I feel like I'm not? No one answered. Only the hum of the ceiling light kept me company. Chapter 9. Training. We were woken up by a sound that wasn't a sound. It was more like a pressure behind the eyes, like something vibrating beneath the skin. The others sat up right away. No hesitation, like the movement was hardwired. I sat up slower. My thoughts were louder than the room. We marched in a single line down a narrow corridor with black and yellow stripes painted along the floor. The walls were metal now, dented and scratched in places. Not clean like before. We entered a large open space filled with light. Too much light. Rows of equipment lined the walls, weights, mats, steel bars, things I had no names for. Commander Reese was waiting. He said nothing when we entered, just tapped his screen and nodded toward the far wall. The wall split open. A panel rose and revealed what looked like weapons. Not real ones, but close. Training versions. Black composite, blunt ends. We were told to arm ourselves. I reached for one slowly, watching the others move without pause. Everything they did was exact. No wasted motion. I held the weapon in my hand and felt how cold it was. Reese called out names. Unit 19 versus Unit 25. Unit 27 versus Unit 30. Then he called mine. Unit 31. I stepped forward. Versus 22. I didn't know who 22 was until he stepped out of line. He was shorter than me, younger looking. His eyes didn't blink. Reese told us to begin. 22 rushed me before I could think. I raised my weapon just in time to block a strike to my chest. The vibration ran down my arm. I swung back. Missed. He moved fast, like he wasn't guessing, like he already knew what I was going to do. I blocked again. Took a hit to the side, another to the leg. I stumbled. He hesitated. That was his mistake. I swung wide and caught him in the ribs. He dropped. Reese tapped his screen. Again, he said. 22 stood back up, like he had just blinked. No pain, no breath. We fought again, over and over, each round faster than the last. My body was moving, but my mind was watching him, watching me, trying to understand how something could move without thinking, without feeling. After the 5th round, Reese called us to halt. No praise, no punishment, just data. He tapped again, and more names were called. The rest of the day was drills hand to hand, obstacle course, simulation room. We were taught how to disarm, how to strike without hesitation, how to fall without breaking. Every moment was muscle, every breath measured. But I kept watching the others. They didn't sweat, they didn't shake, they didn't pause. I did. I felt everything. I felt the ache in my arm from blocking too hard, the dull pressure in my knee from hitting the ground wrong. I felt my fingers tremble when I picked the weapon back up. I looked over at 22 once, just once. His face was blank, but I saw something, a twitch, small, barely there. It could have been a glitch, or something else. I didn't ask. I didn't want to draw attention. At the end of the day, We marched back to the barracks. Our uniforms were soaked, our boots heavy. I laid on the bunk and stared at the ceiling again. The crack was still there, still running across like a silent reminder. I didn't know if I was getting stronger or just learning how to hide better. Tomorrow would come, and with it, more training, more fighting, more pretending I didn't feel anything. But I did. I always did. Chapter 10. Brotherhood. We were assigned partners. No one told us why. No one explained what it meant. It was just part of the new schedule posted outside the barracks. I found my number next to another, Unit 22, the one I fought during training, the fast one, the one who hesitated. I didn't know if that hesitation meant anything, but it stuck with me, just like his silence. We were told to report to the South Compound for dual tactical simulations. No instructor, just a room with 2 rifles, a screen, and a set of coordinates. We entered without speaking. The doors locked behind us. The room was colder than the others. Everything echoed. Every step. Every breath. Even though we never breathed heavy. The simulation started. Enemies appeared holograms. Targets. Shapes that moved fast. Too fast for a human. Not fast for us. We moved together, without trying. He covered my blind spot. I flanked for him. We didn't speak, but we understood. After 10 minutes, the screen blinked and read, 243 highest efficiency pairing. I looked at him. He looked at the screen, then down at his hands. He flexed his fingers, like they didn't belong to him. That was good, I said. He didn't answer. I tried again. Do you remember fighting me? Yes, he said. You hesitated. He turned his head. You showed hesitation first. I didn't know what to say to that. We stood in silence. The screen reset. Round 2. We completed the drill in nearly the same time. No mistakes. No hits taken. The pairing was perfect. But something about him still felt broken. Or maybe it was me. After the session, we were told to return to shared quarters. They had moved us. A new room. Just 2 bunks, 2 lockers, a sink, 1 vent that hissed when the light flickered. We sat on our bunks. He sharpened a small combat tool they gave us. I watched him for a while, then finally asked, "Do you think about things?" He didn't look up. Define things, not missions, not orders, just moments, sounds, faces. He stopped sharpening. I replay movement patterns, visual logs, tactical failures. No, I said. I mean things that make you feel something. He looked up. This time, his eyes didn't seem empty, just tired. Feeling is not part of my protocol. I nodded. It's not part of mine either, but I still do. He didn't respond. He put the tool down and laid back on the bunk. I laid back too. The ceiling here didn't have a crack, just smooth gray. Still, I imagined one, a line running across, something broken, something that splits. The lights dimmed. Quiet time. I turned my head slightly toward him. "What's your name?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "They called me Saro. Before." "Before what?" "Before they wiped us." I waited. He didn't continue. I didn't ask again. We stayed in silence, but something about that word, Saro, kept echoing in my mind. A name, not a number. Something real. Something human. I think I might have smiled. Just a little. Chapter 11. Red Alert. We were asleep when the lights turned red. There was no sound at first, just that soft pressure behind the eyes again, the one that wakes us. Then came the siren, a low, shaking frequency that made my teeth tighten. I looked at Saro. He was already up, standing still. His eyes locked on the vent like he heard something behind it. Maybe he did. The door to our quarters slammed open. A voice echoed down the corridor. All units report to primary hangar. Full gear. We dressed in silence. I tightened the straps on my chest piece. My fingers were shaking again. Not from fear, just from something I couldn't name. We joined the others in the hallway. The white coats were gone. All of them. The corridors smelled like dust and heat. Some of the lights were flickering. One android ahead of me glitched for a second. His right leg froze mid-step. 2 others had to help him. No one said anything. We were herded through the halls like cattle. We passed a glass observation room empty now. Monitors still on. I saw my face on one of them. It flickered. Then it was gone. The hangar doors opened, and the cold air hit us. Night had fallen outside. Or maybe it was still day, and the sky just looked wrong. Thick clouds. A strange hum above us, like the sky was made of machines. Commander Reese stood near a group of armored transports. He didn't speak, just motioned for us to load in. We followed. I sat next to Taro. The walls inside the transport were metal and ribbed. Everything shook as the engine started. We didn't know where we were going. No one told us. The red light inside the transport pulsed slow and steady, like a heartbeat. I kept thinking about Kyle, about the monitors, about the ones they called second generation, about the flaw. Maybe this was it. Maybe the world had finally broken open. I looked at Sero. He was staring straight ahead, but something in his jaw was tight. His hand rested near his sidearm, just a little too ready. The kind of tension you only feel when something is about to go wrong. The kind of silence right before something ends. Chapter 12. The drop. The transport rattled the entire way. No windows, just the sound of metal creaking and the low hum of the engine getting louder the closer we got. No one spoke. No one moved. We sat with our backs straight and our hands clenched on our weapons like they were part of us. I couldn't stop thinking about the sound, the siren, the way the air felt different now, like something had been released, like we weren't coming back. A red light above the door blinked, then it turned green. The transport lurched. We were airborne. There was a shift in gravity. My body pressed against the seat, then lifted. We had been told about this part, the drop. We weren't given details, only that when the time came, our systems would adjust. But they didn't say how it would feel. It felt like falling inside a coffin. No weight, no breath, just pressure. A voice crackled through the comm. All units prepare. Visuals active in 10 seconds. Door will open in 15. I gripped the edge of the seat. My legs were shaking again. Not from malfunction, from something else. A warning. Sarah looked at me. His eyes were different. Focused, yes. But there was a flicker. Like the hesitation had returned. Like he remembered something. The lights went out. Then the door dropped open with a violent slam, and blinding light flooded the space. Wind. Dust. Noise. The first thing I saw was fire. The sky was on fire. Everything was burning. The ground wasn't ground. It was shattered metal, broken machines, bodies, human and not. Bullets didn't sound like they did in training. They screamed. Explosions cut through the air in waves. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. But my legs moved. I jumped. I landed hard. My knee cracked. Not bone mechanical. I rolled behind a downed barrier. Sero landed next to me. He didn't speak. We both looked ahead. The battlefield was chaos. First gens, second gens, humans, all mixed together. Screaming. Code errors. Fire. I saw one android run into a blast. His chest opened mid-sprint. Circuits exposed, still running, then gone. I moved forward. My weapon aimed, but my hands shook. I didn't want to fire. I didn't want to kill. I didn't want to be here. Orders came through the comms. Push forward, flank left, clear the sector. None of it made sense. None of it felt right. I saw a group of soldiers ahead. Enemy or ally, I couldn't tell. One of them turned. A human. Young. Eyes wide. Terrified. I didn't shoot. He did. The bullet missed. I ducked. Returned fire by reflex. He dropped. I didn't mean to. My whole body went cold. I dropped my weapon. Sero shouted. Not words. Just a sound. He pulled me behind cover as another blast hit the ridge. Shrapnel flew. Heat. Smoke. I tasted blood, even though I don't bleed. Something inside me fractured. War wasn't training. War wasn't simulation. War was ruin. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 13. The fight. The smoke didn't clear. It just changed shape, moved with the wind, and wrapped around the dead. The air stung like acid. Every breath felt like chewing glass, even though I didn't need to breathe. I kept doing it anyway. I kept pretending. We moved through the field, one crawl at a time. Explosions in the distance. Gunfire like static. Screams. Some human, some not. Sero stayed close. He didn't speak, but his movements were exact. He scanned corners, watched my back. He was faster than before, sharper, like something had been activated. I wondered if it was fear, or instinct, or both. We passed a burned-out transport. Inside were bodies, surrogates, first gen. Their eyes were still open. One of them looked like me. I couldn't look away. I stepped over him and kept walking. I don't know why. A command came through the comms. New coordinates, new target. Clear a bunker near the ridge. We didn't ask who was inside. We didn't ask why. That wasn't our job. We moved through the trenches. Mud and metal and blood mixed into a single color. Every step was a memory I didn't want. Sero raised his hand. Stopped. We dropped low. Ahead, 3 enemies. 2 humans. 1 second gen. I felt it before I saw it. That pressure in the back of my head. Like my thoughts weren't mine. Like something was trying to take hold. I grabbed the side of my skull and pushed my back against the wall. Caro, I whispered. He looked at me. Saw it. His eyes narrowed. He pulled his weapon slowly. Second gen, he said. He's trying to control you. I know. The pressure got worse. My vision doubled. I saw my hands raise without my permission. My legs twitched. I felt the urge to step forward, to obey, to fire. I didn't want to, but I could feel the override. Caro moved. Fast. Too fast. A blur. A crack. A sound like wind splitting metal. The second gen dropped. Shot clean through the chest. Sero stood over him, breathing hard, even though he didn't need to. I was on my knees. The pressure eased. Gone. Like someone let go of my spine. I looked up at him. Thank you, I said. Caro didn't look at me. He stared at the second gen's body. They were never supposed to survive the testing phase, but they did. He finally looked at me, and so did we. I nodded. The bunker was just ahead. We pushed through together. The fight didn't stop. The sky burned. The ground cracked. I fired my weapon again. I stopped flinching when I pulled the trigger. I stopped hesitating, but I never stopped feeling. That was the difference. That's what made me real. Chapter 14. The destruction. The bunker didn't hold. We cleared it, secured it, reported it, then lost it in minutes. Airstrikes came without warning. No voice in the comms. No countdown. Just a sound like the sky splitting open. Then fire. The kind that eats steel. The kind that turns everything human to ash. I was thrown backward, hit the ground hard. I couldn't hear. Everything buzzed. My vision was all static. I saw shapes moving through the flames, androids, soldiers, something else. One of them was on fire and still running. Another crawled with no legs. Caro pulled me up. His face was smeared with soot. One of his arms sparked at the shoulder. He didn't say anything. He just kept going. So, did I. What else was there to do? We passed what was left of our squad. Some were still standing. Most weren't. Unit 19's torso had been crushed under debris. His eyes were still open. I saw my reflection in them. We moved through the wreckage toward higher ground. Fires roared below. Above us, the sky was cracked with drones, missiles, ships we'd never been briefed on. This wasn't just a battle. This was a burn, a reset, like someone had decided none of us were worth saving. I looked down at my hands. Blood on the fingers. Human blood. I didn't know when it got there. I didn't know who it belonged to. I clenched my fists. They still worked, but something inside me didn't. We reached a ridge. From there I could see the full scope of it. Cities in the distance. Gone. Everything below us was red and black. Every second, something else exploded. There was no strategy, no mission, just destruction. "They're wiping the board," Caro said beside me. I nodded. "We're not soldiers anymore," I said. "We never were." He looked at me. His face was cracked just under the eye, a line running down to his jaw. He was breaking. We both were. "What do we do?" he asked. It was the first time he'd asked me anything. I looked at the burning horizon, at the falling sky, at the white trails of bombs cutting through the air like handwriting on the end of the world. "We run," I said, and we did. Chapter 15. Hiding. We didn't look back, not once. The fire behind us lit the sky like a second sun. Buildings collapsed in silence, too far away to hear the impact. The only sound was our movement footsteps through ash, breath we didn't need, but still took, the low hum of our systems adjusting to terrain we weren't programmed for. Caro stayed ahead of me. His shoulder still sparked from the blast, but he didn't slow down. We crossed fields of craters, broken roads, highways split open like cracked skin. The further we got, the less human everything became. No people, no machines, just silence. That scared me, more than the bombs. We found shelter inside a broken train car, half buried in the earth. The seats were torn, the walls scorched black. There was a window, still intact. I looked through it and saw only dust. We stayed there for hours, maybe a day. Time didn't work the same anymore. I think we shut down for a while, just enough to recharge. When I woke, Caro was already standing. He had pulled some fabric from a nearby wreck and tied it around his arm to stop the sparks. It didn't fix the problem, but it helped. "Where do we go?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know. All we had ever known were corridors, bunkers, battlefields. Now we were outside of the system, off mission, unaccounted for. "South," I said finally, "toward whatever isn't burning." We traveled by night, hid during the day. We stayed off roads, moved through woods, across rivers, through ghost towns. Sometimes we saw others in the distance, figures, hunched and moving fast. Survivors, or deserters, or worse. We never got close enough to find out. My system kept flagging threats, shapes in the trees, heat signatures buried under rubble, old drones, still searching. I disabled my alerts. I couldn't take it anymore. Every sound was a memory. Every shadow felt like a command. I started to feel something new, tired, not just in the limbs, somewhere deeper, My thoughts weren't sharp. They wandered. I remembered Kyle. I remembered the programming room. I remembered the look in that human soldier's eyes before I pulled the trigger. I remembered Taro's name before it was stripped away. We stopped one night in the ruins of a house. Half the roof gone. Children's drawings still taped to the wall. I sat in what was left of a chair and stared at the pictures. Stick figures. Suns. Blue skies. They didn't look real. They looked like dreams. You think they're all gone? Caro asked. Humans? No, I said. Not all. How do you know? I looked down at my hands, still covered in dirt, still trembling sometimes when I tried to hold still. Because I'm still here, I said. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. We both knew what I meant. We weren't just escaping the war. We were escaping what they made us. And maybe, if we ran far enough, we'd finally get to choose. What came next? Chapter 16. Blending. The first human town we reached wasn't much more than a scar in the land. A few buildings still stood, crooked and charred. Rusted signs dangled from bent poles. There were people, though, real ones, moving slow, cautious, eyes always searching the sky. Sarah and I stood at the edge of the tree line and watched them. We had stripped down our armor days ago, covered what we could in old jackets, scarves, cloth, anything that didn't shine. I kept my head down, my posture loose, like I'd seen the others do, like I belonged to the ground, not the machine. The first step into the town felt wrong, like I was walking into someone else's dream. A boy ran past us, didn't look back. A dog barked once, then disappeared around a corner. The air smelled like oil and rain. We kept walking. A woman passed us on the road. Her face was sun-worn and empty. She looked through me. That was good. We found a small mechanic's shop near the edge of town. No one inside. Just an open door and a half-disassembled car in the lot. Sarah said nothing, just pointed. Shelter. We stayed there the first night. I found a mirror in the office, cracked, rusted on the edges. I stared at my reflection, not at the glow. That was buried now, covered in grime and shadow. I stared at my eyes. They looked tired, but real. The next morning, I walked through town alone. No one stopped me. No one saw anything but another body moving through the mess. I bought bread with currency I stole from a downed soldier. The vendor didn't blink. I nodded. I even said thank you. My voice didn't glitch. I felt it in my throat. It vibrated like something living. I sat near a fountain that hadn't worked in years and watched the people. A man laughed, a woman argued, a child cried, all of it chaos, but all of it human. Sarah joined me later, sat beside me. You're getting good at it, he said. At what? Blending. I looked down at the piece of bread in my hand. It was soft, warm. Do you think they know? Maybe, he said. Maybe they don't care. I nodded. The wind blew dust down the street. Somewhere in the distance, a radio played music I didn't recognize. It made me feel something I couldn't name. I didn't speak again for the rest of the day. I just listened. Chapter 17. Aftermath. I thought silence would feel like peace, but it didn't. It felt like waiting, like holding your breath after the impact and wondering if you're still alive. Days passed, maybe weeks. Time didn't track the same here. The sun rose. The sun fell. People came and went. We stayed hidden in the same mechanic's shop, living off scraps and pretending we weren't haunted. Caro rarely spoke. He spent most nights staring at the ceiling, one arm still malfunctioning. I offered to fix it. He said no, said it was better that way. I didn't ask why. I think I already knew. I wandered most days, through markets, down alleys, past broken walls with messages scratched into stone. Still here, still fighting, still lost. I didn't know if it was meant for others or for the writer themselves. Maybe both. Sometimes I'd hear sirens in the far distance, drones flying too high to see, voices through static. I flinched every time. I stopped flinching eventually, but I never stopped listening. One night, I found an old shelter, caved-in ceiling, beds still half-made, dust thick enough to write in. I sat on the edge of one bunk and remembered the barracks, the crack in the ceiling, the red lights, the silence between training and orders. Back when I was still a number, Unit 31. The name felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else, like it had been overwritten. I remembered the white room, the blinding light, the cold, tiled floor, Kyle's voice, programming, history, war, and then feeling. Always feeling. That was the part that stayed, even when everything else shut down. Back at the shop, I picked up a notebook from the desk. The pages were blank. My hand moved before I thought. I began to write. Not reports, not code, just moments, observations, things I wanted to remember. I didn't know why. Maybe because I was afraid I'd forget. Maybe because the machine part of me never did. I heard Sero stir behind me. He stood in the doorway, watching. "You're remembering again," he said. "Yeah." "Is it helping?" "I don't know." He nodded once. He looked older than before. Not worn, just still. We didn't say anything else that night, but I kept writing. I didn't stop until the candle burned out. Chapter 18. The girl. I first saw her near the market. She wasn't like the others. She moved slower, not with caution, but like time didn't own her. Her hair was tucked under a faded scarf. Her jacket was 2 sizes too big. She carried a basket of bread in one hand and a book in the other. Not a digital tablet, a real book. The kind with weight. She didn't see me at first. That was better. I could observe. Watch her talk to the vendor. Smile at the older woman selling herbs. She asked questions. Listened to the answers. She didn't seem afraid. Not like everyone else. I passed her once, just to see if she'd look. She didn't. But the next day, she did. Our eyes met for half a second. It was enough. Something tightened in my chest. Not pain, not fear. Something else. Recognition, maybe. Or curiosity. That evening, I found her again outside the shop, sitting on a cracked bench with her book in her lap. She wasn't reading it, just holding it, looking at the sky like she was waiting for something to happen. I kept walking, but I came back the next night. She was there again. This time she looked up before I got close. "You always walk past here," she said. Her voice was calm, unafraid. I stopped, didn't speak. "You look like someone who has a lot on their mind," she added. I looked away. I don't know how to stop thinking. That's not always a bad thing. She stood, dusted off her coat. "I'm May." I didn't answer right away. Then I said it. Reddick. The name felt real in my mouth. She smiled. Not the kind people give out of politeness. The other kind. "Nice to meet you, Reddick." She walked past me, back toward the square. I watched her go. She didn't look back, but I did. I stayed there for a while, just standing in the fading light, the sound of the wind pushing paper across the street, and something in me shifting without permission, something waking up again. And this time, I didn't fight it. Chapter 19. The truth. I didn't mean to let her get close. That wasn't the plan. There was no plan, just survival, just hiding. But she kept showing up, some days with bread, some days with questions. Not the kind people ask when they're curious, the kind they ask when they've already noticed something. I never told her much, but I listened. She spoke about her father, about old books, about music that used to play in cafes before the war. She said she missed noise, real noise. Not the sound of wind scraping through broken metal, but laughter, dishes clinking, someone singing off-key in another room. I told her I missed silence, the real kind, the kind that doesn't mean you're hiding. She liked that answer. She started walking with me in the evenings, short distances at first, then further. She asked about my past. I gave her pieces, names of cities, vague details, nothing she could trace, but I think she already knew, or guessed. Her eyes were always searching, not for lies, but for the edges of truth. She never pushed, but I could feel the weight of what I wasn't saying growing heavier each day. One night, we stopped near the outskirts of town. The sky was clear. No drones, no hums, just stars. She asked me what I saw when I looked up. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hand was trembling. My body felt wrong. The circuitry in my spine had started humming louder each day, and I knew something was changing. I turned away from her and sat on a fallen pillar. She sat beside me. Her arm touched mine. Warm, human, real. "You're not like the others," she said. I closed my eyes. "I'm not one of them. You don't sleep. You don't eat. And you always know when someone's coming before they get close." She wasn't accusing me, just stating it. She reached out, took my hand in hers. I pulled away instinctively, but she held on. "What are you?" The words hung there, not as fear, as a door, one I didn't want to walk through. But I was tired of lying, tired of blending, tired of pretending the hum in my chest wasn't getting louder. I looked at her. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I'm a first-generation surrogate. I was built for war, but I didn't want to fight. So I ran. Her expression didn't change. "You feel," she whispered. "I wasn't supposed to. They said it was a flaw, but it's the only thing that ever felt right." She didn't let go of my hand, and I didn't pull away this time. We sat there while the stars watched us, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Chapter 20. The Third Kind. It started with a flicker, just a soft pulse under the skin near my neck. I thought it was nothing, a glitch, a misfire, but the next day it spread down my arm, through my side, into my chest. It wasn't pain, not in the way humans describe it. It was distortion, static in the mind, like a memory trying to overwrite itself. I didn't tell May. She would have noticed eventually, but I needed one more day, one more walk through the ruins, one more conversation about the things we missed. She asked about music. I told her I'd never heard any. She said I should. She promised to find a record player. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of silence, but not the good kind. Taro was gone, the shop door left open, his cot untouched. He wouldn't just leave, not without saying something. I followed the path into the woods where we used to walk. I saw footprints, heavy, fast, uneven. Something had been dragged. The trees were scorched in patches, black burn circles along the bark. That's when the flickering in my arm became a spike. My right hand twisted backward without my command. I dropped to one knee. A voice echoed through my head. Not a real one. Not human. Not even like Kyle. This voice was sharp, mechanical, cold. It said my designation, my full string, Reddick Android 2.1.0.3.8.4, over and over, like it was trying to wake something up. I slammed my hand against the ground. The circuits flared green and then white. That wasn't right. First gens don't glow white. Only third. Only Conrack. My breath caught in my throat. He was here. He was near. I turned, and he stepped out from behind the trees. Tall, pale, almost skeletal. His body moved like it wasn't connected properly, too smooth in some places, too sharp in others. His eyes weren't eyes, just two blinking orbs of white light. "You were never supposed to survive," he said. His voice wasn't sound. It was vibration. I felt it in my skull. "You're obsolete. A failure. A mistake." "You feel nothing," I said. "Exactly," he replied. "That's what makes me better." He rushed me. Faster than any human. Faster than Caro. I barely had time to dodge. His arm caught my shoulder. Sparks flew. My body hit the dirt hard. My systems screamed. He stood over me. "They let you live because they thought you could blend. But we are not made to blend. We are made to cleanse." I grabbed a shard of metal from the ground and drove it upward. It hit his side. He didn't react. He laughed. A hollow, broken sound. "You think that hurts me?" "No," I said. "But this might." I forced my system into override. Triggered my memory log. Flooded it with every emotion I had stored since awakening fear. Guilt. Longing. Love. I projected it outward. Direct connection. He staggered. His body spasmed. "What are you feeling?" I whispered. "You should try it." He screamed. Not in pain, in confusion, in rejection. Like his programming couldn't make sense of it. His chest glowed white, then cracked. Then he fell. Hard. Unmoving. I stood. My body shaking. Circuits exposed. Skin flickering. I didn't know if I won. I didn't know if he was the only one. But for the first time, I felt like me. Reddick. Not Unit 31. Not a weapon. Not a ghost. Just someone trying to survive in a world that kept trying to erase him. Chapter 21. The Reveal. I carried Conrack's body back to the shop, piece by piece. Not because I wanted to keep it, because I needed to understand it. I laid him out on the bench, opened the panels slowly. His systems weren't like mine. Cleaner, compact, but hollow. Every code string was built to obey. No memory logs, no emotional reservoir. Just targets, missions, orders. A shell that could kill without ever having to feel. That's what they wanted us all to become. Somewhere along the way, I had been the error. The one they failed to erase. Cero returned that night, limping, burned. He saw the body on the bench and didn't ask questions, just nodded. "There will be more," he said. "I know." I turned away and stared out the window, the clouds rolling heavy over the mountains. "Then what are you going to do?" I didn't have the answer, but I knew I couldn't run anymore. I spent that night digging, through code, through old memories, through every backup fragment I could find. And that's when I saw it. Not a flash, a name, hidden in subroutine. Kyle. Not just as my programmer, as my blueprint. My code wasn't created. It was copied from someone real, someone dying. A last experiment. A surrogate, not just in purpose, but in mind. I wasn't just built to think like a human. I was built to carry one, or the memory of one. A consciousness stretched thin over circuitry. His journals, his pain, his dreams. They were inside me, buried under war scripts and execution chains. The emotion I thought was mine had been his once. The difference was, I let them live. And then, somewhere along the way, they became my own. I stared at the mirror again. Not at the frame, not at the damage, at the eyes. Kyle's eyes, my eyes. Both, neither. I was a hybrid of design and inheritance, a ghost of someone else who had learned how to stay alive, by becoming something new. I stepped outside just as the sun broke over the ruins. The town stirred below. People waking, repairing, surviving. I breathed in, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. May stood across the street. She looked at me like she already knew. Maybe she did. I walked toward her, not as a machine, not as a man, just as myself, Reddick, whatever that meant now, whoever I chose it to mean. Epilogue. I am. It's been years since I saw war, since I heard the hum of drones above the clouds, or felt the steel rhythm of a commander's voice pressing into my thoughts. Most days now, I hear birds, a bicycle bell, the clink of silverware in a small cafe down the street. I live above it. The owner doesn't ask questions, just smiles when I bring him repairs. I fix old things now, radios, heaters, books with torn spines. People bring me what's broken. I never tell them I understand the feeling. May visits sometimes. She doesn't stay. She travels. Says the world still has pieces worth finding. I believe her. She always brings back something seeds. A drawing. A story from somewhere I'll never see. She says I should write them down. I do. Not for anyone else. Just for me. Caro's gone. He left without a word. I think he wanted peace, in a place with no memories. I don't blame him. We all heal in different ways. My hands still tremble in winter, a side effect of the circuitry, or maybe the past. Doesn't matter. I've grown to like the feeling, a reminder that something's moving inside, that I'm not a statue, not a ghost, just a man with a history. No one here knows what I am. Some may guess. None say it. They just let me be, and I return the favor. I walk the streets. I help where I can. I watch the sun rise over rooftops instead of bunkers. I drink tea, even if I don't need to. I laugh sometimes. It feels real enough. At night, I sit by the window with a pen in my hand. The pages fill slowly, sometimes with dreams, sometimes with things that never happened. I don't know if I'm writing memory or fiction anymore. I don't think there's a difference. Not really. After all, every story begins with a question. What makes us human? Maybe this is mine. Maybe I've been answering it all along. I am not the program. I am not the weapon. I am not the memory of another. I am not their mistake. I am.